Good morning, everyone. I'm here to give you an introduction to lesson 10.3, which is titled Shapes of Distribution. So we're actually not going to be creating different types of graphs in this particular lesson. We're going to be almost observing them. So in our notes, we're going to see that there are different ways to classify the shape of a graph, okay? We're going to deal primarily today with histograms because that's what's up on my chart paper from the last few days. So we can look at a graph and it can be what we would consider skewed. And if something is skewed, it's off-center, it's lopsided, it's there's that construction commercial, cattywampus, right? It's not even, okay? So we can look at something that is skewed, or we can be looking at something that would be classified as more symmetrical. So if we think back to our work in elementary school, the lines of symmetry, you looked at a shape and you were able to draw a line through it in whatever way, and you saw that both sides were the same, okay? That if you folded it, they'd match up. That's more or less true with graphs that are symmetrical. Graphs that are symmetrical don't need to be perfectly symmetrical the way that a line of symmetry in a shape would be. So we can also, last kind is we can also have a graph that's more flat or uniform. So where all the bar heights are pretty much the same exact height. There's not any ups and downs to it, okay? So one example that we looked at, let me just go down a little bit. This is from our second day of work with histograms, the presidential election, the percentage of states that were voting. In this question, we see the steps of these bars gradually increase to the peak and then gradually decrease. This would be a graph that, although is not perfectly symmetrical, we would classify as symmetrical. It's more or less the same. We've got a peak in the center and then it kind of trickles down from there. Okay, that's a good example of something that might be classified as symmetrical. Okay, I want to contrast that with some of our work from the first day of STEM and Lead to look at some graphs that might be skewed. Okay, so this is from the workbook page we did for 10.2. Here are some graphs that are definitely more skewed. We can see bars here high and they trickle off quite significantly. The opposite being here, money spent. The high bars are over on the right-hand side and they kind of trickle down significantly. So you'll see in the notes that not only will we classify a graph as skewed, we classify it as skewed right or skewed left. And the way we classify which direction something is skewed is where the tail is. So for instance, if we were to take, it's almost like a roller coaster ramp, okay, right? You go climb up, 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 and then you go down that big long ramp or hill or whatever you want to call it. If we were to take this, we see that the peak right here, and then it's dropped down. That drop down, that trickle off, that's what we call the tail. And you'll see pictures of that in your notes if you haven't looked already. You classify it as where the tail is. So this particular, the goal scored histogram is skewed, and more specifically, it's skewed right. Because if we were to trace that roller coaster hill, the tail, the ramp, the low part is off to the right-hand side. Okay? If we were to look down at the height jumped, the money spent, it's reversed of that, okay? The height is here, and then it kind of trickles down this way. This particular graph would be skewed left because the tail is off to the left-hand side, okay? So what you're going to be doing today is workbook page 232. There are only 5 questions. In questions 1 through 4, you are just classifying the shape of distribution. Is it symmetrical, meaning pretty evenly spread out? Is it skewed, meaning kind of lopsided one way or the other? And then which direction in which is it skewed, either left or right, okay? And then number 5 is sort of a word problem. I asked you to take it a little bit further. Either way, we're going to be meeting at 2 to go over these answers, to talk a little bit more about it. And hopefully I will see you then. Have a good day.